Welcome to Southern Sense Talk Radio with your host, the radio chick, Annie Ubellis. Join Annie on Tuesdays and Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time with an open chat room full of her regulars. And yes, you can even call in. Call 917-889-3675. That's 917-889-3675 to be a part of the action on the phone line. Not able to listen live? Not a problem. You can always catch Annie, the radio chick, and Southern Sense Talk Radio podcast in archives at southern-sense.com. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Southern Sense the right way.
Not only is it, thank God it's Friday, TGIF, but it's also Veterans Day. Stop a veteran and thank them for their service today and always. Yesterday was the Marine Corps birthday, 241 years, proud. And you're here listening to Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio, High Plains Media, SHR Media, Kinetic Hi-Fi, the Fix FM out of Charleston, Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, oh, the heck with it. You know what I'm going to say next. Go to our website. It's the name of the show. Put a hyphen in the middle, southern-sense.com. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the radio chick, Annie, along with my intellectual and oh-so-handsome and debonair co-host, Curtis C.S. Bennett. Good afternoon, Curtis, and happy Veterans Day to you.
Oh, thank you. I'm really flying on cloud nine today. Thanks to Tuesday and the Marine Corps anniversary yesterday, and today being Veterans Day.
Yes, a lot has happened this week. A heck of a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And we've got a lot to talk about. We got two fantastic guests. We have returning. Both guests have been on here before. Nick Adams, he's got two websites, Nick Adams in America and flagusa.org. And Michael Connelly of the United States Justice Foundation, himself an Army veteran who fights tirelessly for veterans and other issues. He's got a website that is now going on 4 decades old. I mean, some of our listeners aren't even 4 decades old, so... Oh, God. And it's funny because I remember the advent of the personal home computer, and I learned programming on punch cards. Just to think that now it's been so long that people have had websites up like his, had organizations out there like his. It's phenomenal. But today is Veterans Day, and, you know, these are some of the little-known facts about Veterans Day. In World War II, 16 million men served. Out of the 16 million that served in World War II, only 855,000 remain. And every day, 492 pass away. Of current veterans, there are 22 suicides daily, 21% higher than the national average. And over the past 15 years, more troops died from suicide than were killed in Afghanistan. The risk is 140% higher among female vets. And for those that are 18 to 29-year-old, they're 7 times higher than their civilian peers. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I'm going to give out a little information here. It's an organization, NVF.org, NVF.org. They have a lifeline for vets, and the phone number for that is 888-777-4443. And we'll be putting that up in the chat room also. Today's dedication to the show is going out to all of our veterans, without whom our freedom would not exist. The election we just had on November 8th would not have occurred. And my voice, speaking freely right now, would have been silenced. And this is from our guest for the second half. He wrote this on his webpage, Michael Connelly, back on November 1st, and it's most befitting for Veterans Day. He wrote, "This could be written on any day. An American soldier died today in a place far from home. But he did not die alone. He was surrounded by his fellow soldiers, his comrades in arms, who fought beside him every day. They were there to mourn his loss and say a prayer for his soul and his family. They knew that their fellow soldier had died fighting for them, for his family, and for his country. The question for Americans to ponder is, did this soldier die in vain. The soldier took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. In other words, this soldier and his brothers and sisters who wear the uniform of a member of our armed forces took an oath to fight for freedom. It is not an oath to fight for a particular politician, a specific political party, or the personal agenda of any politician or party. The oath is to freedom and the Constitution, that is a document that says what it means and means what it says. This fallen soldier was fighting for freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, and of all the other freedoms enshrined in the single most important document ever created by a free people. He was not fighting for wimpy college students to have a safe place where they could be protected from other Americans who exercised their right to free speech. For this soldier, the only safe space was at home with his family in the United States, and he was fighting to keep that place safe from Islamic jihadist terrorists who are invading it. He died fighting for freedom, but unfortunately, that is a concept many in this country no longer believe in or even comprehend. Too many want a government that gives them free stuff so they don't have to work. American soldiers don't ask for free stuff. They earn what they get. And by the way, the hourly pay for a private in the American military is $8.40 per hour, if they work a 40-hour week, which they don't if in a combat situation. Then they are on call 24 hours a day, and they are not flipping hamburger patties at McDonald's. They are risking their lives for us. Then unfortunately, when they return home, they don't get the medical care or other benefits they are entitled to because the country they fought for chooses to spend taxpayer dollars providing free stuff to people from other countries that may be coming here to kill Americans. These soldiers took an oath of office almost identical to that taken by our president, members of Congress, federal judges, and cabinet members. These soldiers choose to fulfill that oath by giving up their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor in the defense of freedom. Unfortunately, the members of the federal government who took that oath believe it means that they must enforce political correctness as they define it, even if it means the total destruction of our constitutional republic. The American soldier who died today went into battle as a defender of freedom, while many of the politicians who sent him into battle consider him as cannon fodder. The death of American soldiers are meaningless to these people, and that is obvious from the fact that no White House representatives attend their funerals. They only go to the funerals of thugs like Michael Brown and Trayvon Martin. The American soldiers who are fighting for us know why they are fighting and why they are risking their lives. It is time for the rest of America to decide which side are we on. Will we support our Constitution and the soldiers who defend it, or we join the politicians who consider us their subjects who must be bent to their will and become good little drones? As the son of a World War II veteran, the father of 2 sons currently serving in the Army, and a veteran of the U.S. Army myself, I know where I stand. I stand with the American soldier who died today, and I pledge my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor to ensure that this soldier did not die in vain. Where do you stand? Signed, Michael Connelly, United States Justice Foundation. Today's show is dedicated to all of the veterans out there, and today's dedication is different. It is by the Monroe Brothers. It was performed back in 1936. It is called The Forgotten Soldier. God bless them all.
I'm just a poor ex-soldier that's broken down and blue. I'm all out in the Great World War for the old red, white, and blue. I left my parents and my girl I love to Frantic go. we fought until the war was over. They said we won the...
G'day there, you've reached Nick Adams. Unfortunately, I can't take your call at the moment, but if you leave your name, number and a message, I look forward to getting back with you as soon as possible. Have a terrific day. God bless you, and God bless the greatest country in the history of the world, the United States of America.
Hi, Nick. It's Ann with Southern Sense Talk Radio. We are live on the air now. Please call in to 917-889-3675. Thank you.
Boys who fought to save our land. Son, barefoot boy next door, yapple of mother freedom tide. All across his land, I was raised to be a man. I came from old towns everywhere, and heard the bad roads cry. Some have called me Minute Man, Johnny Reb, G.I. Joe. Every war I've had a different name, and I made the sacrifice. Yes, I bravely gave my life. My spirits rise to the breeze that makes old glory wave. Don't you know me? I'm the unknown soldier. I proudly served you to keep our country strong. I'm the counselor who died to keep liberty alive. You remember me, and I'm not really gone. And the unknown soldier marches on. In the fields of Vietnam, on the seas and deserts standing, I'm a sentry and I stand by watch alone. My soul will rest in peace, long as America stays free. I'm the heart of every boy that's never coming home. But don't you know me? I'm the unknown soldier. I proudly served you to keep our country strong. I'm the counselor who died, keep liberty alive. If you remember me, then I'm not really gone. And the unknown soldier marches on. Marches on. Marches on.
And that last song was Unknown Soldier by our friend Doug Briney. And we're back here live on Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio, High Plains Media, SHR Media, Kinetic Hi-Fi, the Fix FM out of Charleston, South Carolina. You know what I'm going to say. Just go to our website, the name of the show, put a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com. And Curtis, it looks like I tried to contact our guest, Nick Adams, and he's MIA. So we're going to have to, fudge it.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man.
Send search and rescue out for him.
Yeah, calling Nick Adams. Where are you? I just shot a message over to his publicist, so hopefully he'll be able to get him on the line here. But we got a lot to talk about anyway, because it's been an exciting election, and we've got riots going on Oakland, L.A., New York, Chicago. I mean, these people are nuts. They've become rabid. You know, in 2008, when Obama became president, you didn't see conservatives out there in the middle of the street marching and protesting. No, what you saw was after he's been in office for a while, for several months, and we started to see what he was doing, people started to coalesce and then started to form the Tea Parties. It started towards the end of February, mid-March. I mean, our group was formed in May, so some people were starting, but the real growth happened in the end of April, May, going into June, just before the July 4th holiday. That was the birth of the Tea Party. And what you saw were rallies, peaceful rallies, patriotic rallies. When we went into an area and we held a rally, by the time we left, it was cleaner than when we got there. You didn't see anyone get hurt.
Well,
you
this just goes to show their hypocrisy.
Yeah.
It just goes to show their hypocrisy. You know, they if you remember the 60s, what was it? Love and peace and all that, you know. Mm-hmm. And today they're showing a lot of hate, you know. I just don't understand it.
That's what I don't get, you know, how much, but, you know, it's not so much the crowds, because Sue sent me a video, and I was watching it, and out of the entire crowd, they had 7,000 people there in Oakland, and only 750 some odd police officers. And the officers were getting hurt. This is also what I don't understand. When they do these riots, and it's usually just a handful of that crowd, maybe a couple of hundred, the ones that are real vandals, the real agitators. But why do they go into a neighborhood where we've got small mom and pop shops, people that are struggling just to make ends meet, and they smash the windows, they steal the merchandise, they set people's cars on fire. You know, these are everyday people just like you and me that are just working, trying to make ends meet. And when you destroy these small businesses, you take jobs away. You end up making a ghost town that takes years to recover from. I mean, I used to patrol some of these streets after the riots they had in the 70s in Brooklyn. And when I left, only then, and you're talking 25 years later after the riots, only then did some of those neighborhoods start to come back with gentrification. They have no idea. Or maybe they do. Maybe that's the whole point of it. Complete anarchy. Let's get anarchy. Let's then have martial law enforced. And then Obama goes in and stays in office. Maybe that is what their point is, Curtis. What do you think?
I think they're being paid very well to go into these neighborhoods and cause as much chaos as possible. Perhaps even try to stir up passions within the community so they can join, you know, their forces. And, of course, the network news love to focus on things like that. But I really think, you know, George Soros' money is behind a lot of this across the nation. I mean, there were signs already printed up. And how could that be that fast, you know? That same night, signs were already printed up, you know, about Trump, anti-Trump signs and things.
Yeah, and
so this is well organized.
They had that huge Donald Trump piñata. I'm sorry. This is not a spontaneous, you know, protest. If you're coming out with all this stuff, the masks, the bandanas over their face to hide their looks, it takes money and time to put some of these things together. So, you know, someone went and hired the buses ahead of time. Someone went and hired the driver ahead of time. Someone went ahead of time and told all these people where to meet so they can get on the buses and be sent to these locations. That takes time and planning.
Yeah, they were staged.
Yeah.
They were staged, you know, almost like a military operation where you get all your forces in place, you stage them, that's the term we use, and then at the right moment, you know, you converge, collapse, or whatever onto your target. And exactly. That's what it seems like, because this is sprinkled all over the United States. And I really can't believe that many people are that upset with Donald Trump.
I can't either. I cannot either. And that they're also saying not my president because he wasn't elected by majority rule. Well, hello, folks. We happen to be a representative republic. And every time I hear someone, especially if it's on Fox News, saying, we have a democracy. No, we don't. We elect our officials using a democracy method, which is by our vote. That's the only part that you can say is a democracy. We are a representative republic based upon our Constitution. A republic is a government that is based on the rule of law. A democracy is a government that is by majority rule. So 51% of the population can tell 49% of the population, well, we decided that everyone's going to wear red shirts, so it is now the law that everyone in the land wears only red shirts. That is socialism. That is not a republic.
That's mob rule.
It is mob rule. It is. And we got our friend. Let's bring in Sweet Sue from New Mexico. Good afternoon, Sue. How are you doing today? Sue, unmute yourself. Well, Sue, I got your microphone.
There we go. I can't talk for long. But, the one thing that I've been seeing, and this is on both sides, before the election, you saw a lot of, conservatives saying we shouldn't have the Electoral College. And I think that was because it was looking like Hillary was going to win the Electoral College. After you saw people on the other side saying, get rid of the Electoral College, popular vote is what should rule. You know what? People need to study up and realize what the Electoral College is, why our founding fathers put it in there. If you went by the popular vote, then your popular state, the states with the most population, such as New York, California, and you can look on the map of the election how few states went blue for Hillary Clinton. They would be picking our president, and the rest of the states would have no say. So it really ticks me off that people don't understand, the Electoral College. And I'm going to go back on mute because I'm losing my voice.
Thank you so much, Sue.
And you know something, Sue? The media knows this, but they don't tell the public this. They want to put on airs that there's something wrong with the system. This person got the most votes, yet this other system preventing them from winning.
Well,
and they know they're just stirring up the hornet's nest.
Exactly.
And they never tell you why the system is in place like it is. Like you said, if we went by, the most popular person in the country, then the states with the most populations will always rule.
Exactly.
And the little states, they would be less than a third.
Oh, sorry. Just one more thing. As of this morning, IBT Times, which I think is pretty accurate, said Hillary Clinton was leading by 400,000 votes, which isn't that much. But, when they're saying that she got the most popular votes, they are still counting votes. Michigan, they're still counting votes. They're still counting servicemen who voted. So at this point, to come out and say she won the popular vote is a little bit early to me.
Yeah, and it was such a very, very tiny margin, very tiny margin. But Sue is absolutely correct. If we were to go to the majority vote, then states like Rhode Island will have no voice. States like South Carolina would have no voice. The founding fathers were smart. They wanted to give each and every state an equal voice in choosing who the president is. By doing a mob vote like they want, the Democratic vote, majority rule, 51, then I would say 95% of the United States would have no voice in any election, and only 5% would. So we would be ruled by 5% of the population. We got some callers coming in on the line. Let me bring in, I think I know this is, but I'm sorry. Is this Sarge? Area code 770?
Let me check. Yeah, I think it is. How you doing there, darling? How's it going today?
All right. I lost my guest. I don't know where he went. I do see people, I want to mention, on the studio phone lines. If you want to join the conversation, or if you happen to be my guest, because I don't see his phone number up there, please press 1 and I'll be happy to bring you on. Sarge, happy Veterans Day and thank you for your service.
Thank you, madam. I do it all over again because this is the greatest country in the history of mankind, period.
Yes.
But I'm glad to see that you're helping to acquaint our fellow Americans with the most brilliant document for liberty and governance in the history of mankind, the United States Constitution. And one thing I'd like to mention about the Electoral College is that it is another method of checks and balances.
Exactly.
The Constitution is all about a carefully constructed system of checks and balances to diffuse power to minimize the likelihood of tyranny. Because the framers were Christians, they understood that they were sinners and that all men have the potential to sin. And sin, one of the greatest of sins, is the inclination to tyranny. So I think the framers figured that by spreading power around, they'd be less likely to come up with what in their day they considered consolidated government. They didn't have communism or fascism yet, but they did understood certainly tyranny and the danger of the concentration of power. So what the Electoral College provides is another check, because as we well know, the real election for president will take place on December 19th. Now, the people of the Electoral College, whom the founders hoped would be people of probity, wisdom, and farsightedness, if they were to see that the American people made the mistake of electing someone like, Hillary Clinton, a proven criminal, whose presidency would no doubt be tied up and paralyzed by an investigation and impeachment proceedings and a totally divided country, then they, in their wisdom, which they would hope they would have the freedom to reject her by voting for someone else. So you have another check against the tyranny of the mob or the recklessness of the mob. And as we know, that's when the real election takes place, on December 19th.
Well,
another check and another balance. And I wouldn't want to mess with it. I don't want to change it. I think those men were much smarter than many of us are today. Because they studied so much of human nature and government throughout the time, up until the time of the Constitution. And nothing in human nature has really changed.
Well, Sarge, I also want to mention, because you said that they had no experience with communism or socialism, that I would differ with you, because if you remember, the original Plymouth Rock colony did attempt to be a communal colony.
I'm sorry, you are correct.
And they know from that experiment, that failed experiment, that they did not want this nation going down that road. And already they had, the German philosophers were talking about socialism as late as the 1790s. So again, they knew the way Europe was going. They also knew the experiment of Pilgrim Rock. So yeah, they had that there too. So that's exactly why they crafted the Constitution the way they did with the Electoral College, to give us a chance to retain our rights and freedoms. Because without this Constitution, and if it's majority rule, they would be out the window. They would have been out the window 150 years ago. But thankfully,
I do stand corrected on that. I'm sure they were undoubtedly familiar with that. I guess I meant to say on a large governmental scale. Mm-hmm. The only real type of tyranny they've been familiar with would have been the kind of tyranny associated with monarchies and kings and that like and hereditary monarchy. So I guess that's what I meant to say. But you're right. I'm sure many of them were certainly familiar with the failed attempt at communalism at Plymouth Rock. And undoubtedly that figured into the thinking, too.
Yeah. I got to say, though, that this election did electrify the silent majority. A lot of people were not saying who they were going to vote for. A lot of people just got out there to the polls. I mean, we had one poll was taking more than 2 hours with people in line here in Beaufort County, South Carolina. And I'm hearing all across the nation there were lines out the door. I mean, when I voted, I did the early voting, and my husband and I waited an hour, and that's for early voting. So we don't hear the media talking about those lines. You just hear occasionally a few little news outlets will mention it. Our local little communist rag newspaper, even they reported on the lines out the door. And the election board supervisor actually went and apologized in the media for the long lines because they did not anticipate them. And that's the strange part. With an election so important as this, that our own officials could not even anticipate the turnout and the backlash of the American people against this administration and against Hillary Clinton. And why they're surprised, I don't know. I don't know if anyone saw Newsweek cover, and I predicted this. And Curtis, you can say yes, you do remember. I've said this over and over again that this was going to be a Dewey moment, and Trump was going to be Clinton's Truman. Remember Dewey, the newspaper that declared, of course, the headline that Dewey won and Truman lost? Well, Newsweek printed out the magazine, sent it to their subscribers. Thousands of these magazines went out, and now they have to recall them all.
Yeah.
Don't you want to get a copy of one of those? It might be worth a lot of money in the future.
Oh, yeah.
Get one. Do you know where I can get one?
I don't know.
It's got to be precious to get a hold of one of those. But this has been one of the most edifying elections I can remember. I mean, just to watch the smarty pants in the Republican establishment and the smarty pants conservatives who are the never Trumpers, and they're like the David Brooks and Charles Krauthammer and many others, and to watch the looks on the enormous helpings of crow they must have had to stuff down. I hope they put a lot of Tabasco sauce on it to mask the scent. And did they eat it with feathers or what? And then to watch, but even more satisfying than that was to watch the meltdown of these liberals. I mean, it's like they're literally having a moment of public madness, the like of which I don't think I've witnessed in American politics. This sort of collective psychosis they're having. I mean, it is really quite startling. I've always known it was there. I didn't realize it was to this depth. Now, look, I got to confess, Annie, I didn't know how this election was going to turn out. I was prepared for either outcome because, like I said, I've never seen anything like this before in my entire life. Everything would change from day to day. It seemed to be impossible to predict the outcome with any certainty. I only knew that we were going to maintain the constitutional republic Hillary Clinton had to lose. That I knew for sure. But I didn't know what the outcome was going to be. But I did say to myself, now look, if Trump loses and if Hillary Clinton is elected, well, this is what the next phase of operations has got to be. I didn't sit there crying about the possibility Trump was going to lose. I was grimly determined that in order to save the republic, we might have to do X, Y, and or Z. Well, and I was saying to myself, now, who can I get together with in order to ensure that this republic is maintained and the Constitution is observed? But I didn't sit there being prepared to cry about it and sulk, put my thumb in my mouth and go in a corner with a blanket over my head. And I think most conservatives are that way. But these liberals, they're literally insane. They're psychotic.
What I couldn't understand was the fact that Trump was drawing anywhere from 20,000 to 60,000 people at his events and his rallies, and maybe Hillary might draw maybe 200-300. If she had a celebrity, maybe 5,000. Yet it was Trump who had to find a way, to find a path to the electorate, But I always knew that didn't make sense to me, that he was drawing all these crowds. She was hardly drawing anybody, but he was the one that had to make up the ground. So I was very confident that these folks were underestimating the people out there and those supporting.
Oh, it was more than just underestimation. I think it was a deliberative attempt at undermining morale. I truly do. I think there was certainly an element of what they considered to be applied political polling science to it. There was an element of it there. But I think as much of it, the people who would take these polls and attempt to analyze them would then attempt to undermine, put a certain amount of black arts propaganda undermining into it to keep those of us on the Trump side dispirited and to suppress our turnout. I don't know how much of it to account for. I don't know whether that was maybe 25% of it, 30, 40, 50, but I know it was a significant element in their overall scheme to win the election for Hillary Clinton, because there is no doubt in my mind whatsoever that the media had an agenda, and that agenda was to carry Hillary Clinton over the finish line, even though she was dying on her feet.
Well, I got to tell you, Sarge,
true.
Curtis, I want to, because this came up. It's a new press release from the Trump campaign, and he is announcing his implementation phase of the presidential transition team. Try to say that 5 times fast. And it reads, President-elect Donald J. Trump today announced that Vice President-elect Mike Pence will serve as chairman of the presidential transition team, and that Dr. Ben Carson, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, former Speaker of the House and Representatives Newt Gingrich, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, retired, former New York City Rudy Giuliani, and U.S. Senator Jeff Sessions will join the executive committee as vice chairs. He also announced the following leaders will join the presidential transition executive committee: Congressman Lou Barletta, Congressman Marsha Blackburn, Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi. Does someone have a speaker going on in their background? Because I'm hearing an echo. Congressman Chris Collins, Jared Kushner, Congressman Tom Marino, Rebecca Mercer, Stevie Mnuchin, Congressman Devin Nunes, Anthony Scaramucci, Peter Thel, Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, Ivanka Trump, RNC Chair Reince Priebus, and Trump campaign CEO Stephen K. Bannon. And he writes, together, this outstanding group of advisors, led by Mike Pence, will build an initial work done under the leadership of Chris Christie to prepare a transformative government ready from day one. So he's hitting the ground running.
Yeah.
He's also saying, joining Dearborn on the lineup, Kellyanne Conway, David Bossie, Stephen Miller, Jason Miller, Hope Hicks, Dan Scavino, Don McGain, and Katie Walsh. So he's hitting the ground running. I mean, day one.
Absolutely. And I think two of the best decisions he made for his campaign were to, one, make Mike Pence his vice presidential nominee, because Mike Pence is the image and the absolute vision of solidity, competence, and stability, kind of like an offset to a somewhat mercurial Donald Trump. I think it was almost perfect. And the second, and maybe the most significant, was his making Kellyanne Conway his campaign manager. That woman is absolutely brilliant. Every time I saw her, she was poised, articulate, calm, confident, focused, cutting when she had to be. An absolutely brilliant choice as campaign manager. If he doesn't make her his chief of staff, which a lot of people don't know is probably one of the most significant appointments a president can make. I don't know who he's going to put in her stead. I mean, a woman is absolutely razor sharp.
Well, he has her down listed as senior advisor, and I would imagine if anyone would be chief of staff, she would be that person.
I mean, I don't think could have made a better choice. I was so mightily impressed by that woman. Boy, now see, that's the kind of woman I could vote for president.
Mm.
Assuming, I mean, that's the kind of woman that I think most of us. It's not that we're against, we conservatives against women. We're against that particular woman.
Yeah, that is the truth.
Well,
and well, Curtis, I was hearing
what
that.
I hope is that. Go ahead, Nate.
I was hearing from people that are in the know that Hillary Clinton, when she found out that she lost, had a major, major, major meltdown. That's why she was not doing the concession speech right after the announcements, that she could not handle it, that she went completely ape. So I'm glad she doesn't have her finger on the button.
It's entirely consistent with everything I've heard about Hillary Clinton for 30 or more years. I mean, there's too many of these stories for them not to have an element of truth. It comports with what I witnessed personally when I was working in Chicago as a state policeman, and I was assigned to work to coordinate elements of a security detail with the Secret Service. And when I briefly met her and she looked at me and other uniformed police officers like we were bugs. And I kind of got confirmation of it in an indirect manner from a Secret Service agent who wouldn't, he said, well, I can't talk about things like that, because I asked her about her temperament and about whether or not she liked police officers, and was I really getting the right impression of me and my comrades when we were talking about the way she seemed regardless? And he said, well, I can't talk about things like that. And all the while he was saying it to me, he was nodding his head up and down.
Well, we've got some postings in the chat room from our friend Vito Esposito. Mamma Mia No Cherie. Check his show out here on BTR. Nice little plug for you, Vito. He wants Sheriff David Clark for Homeland Security. I like that. John Micah for Transportation Secretary, just to piss off, as he calls her, nasty Pelosi.
Well, how about this one? How about Sheriff Joe Arpaio for Homeland Security, Rudy Giuliani for Attorney General, and David Clark for head of the FBI?
Well, we also have Sasquatch. He wants Alan West for Secretary of Defense. I have heard that Alan... Jesus. Ambassador Bolton is seriously being considered possibly as Secretary of State. That would be excellent. I mean, that man has class. He is brilliant, as you love to say, Sarge. I would like to see Bolton there as Secretary of State. And it'll be interesting to see what sort of a cabinet he comes up with. Ben Carson is Health and Human Services.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of good people that he can tap into. And I know that he had Waleed Perez.
Or Surgeon General.
Yeah, but he was using Waleed Perez as a foreign advisor, for Middle East advisor. I mean, he has good people around him, and now he just has to plug them into where he needs them the most. And it's going to be interesting. And already, everyone was saying the stock market was going to crash. The stock market's going to have a major meltdown. Well, guess what? They had to suspend trading because it went too high. It was like over 800 points. They said, whoa, this is starting to run away. We like to see a healthy stock market, but before we go nuts, let's slow down here a little bit, folks. But, hey, it's...
Well, see, Annie, but this is why this is so instructive, because the framers of the Constitution, you notice what the constitutional qualifications for president are. They are only 35 years of age when you take the oath. 2, you got to be 14 years of your 35 years or more of life, resident within one or more of the United States, and a natural-born citizen. Now, we suspended the last requirement for the last 2 presidential terms. Mm-hmm. Now, the framers didn't say you had to be a professional politician. They didn't say you had to be a lawyer. They didn't say you had to be any of that. They said that's all you got to be, and let the American people decide what your qualifications are. Look you over. And I think they've been confirmed in that wisdom by the fact that the American people this time around decided not to elect someone who was part of what this mess has been for the last, I don't know, ever since Reagan got out of office, have been contributing to the mess that we got here.
Well, we've got some more coming up in the chat room also. Vito said he was possibly thinking of Newt for Secretary of State, but Bolton would, all right. Herman Cain for Secretary of Commerce, that'd be excellent.
Yep.
And Kel is writing that Trump may be designating the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. Now that would be great. That would be great.
Oh, yeah.
Because we really do have to recognize that earlier. Well, go ahead, Curtis.
Yeah, what I was going to say earlier, and is that, there's calls out there from the left that we should, meaning Trump, reach across the aisle and add some of their people to the cabinet and important positions so we could just get along. And that would be a mistake for Trump to do, because this is what got them in trouble way back in 2012. We gave them a mandate. We gave them more congressmen, more senators, and then they gave us the finger. They made all these promises of what they were going to do, and then they just, like I said, they forgot about us. So I would advise Trump to stick to his campaign promises and do, the will of the people.
Yeah, but in normal time, in normal times, that is a wise thing to do. That is what you should do. When a Democrat was a reasonably normal, pro-American party, yeah, that would be a reasonable and expected thing to do. The problem is this modern-day Democratic Party has been hijacked by radicals. It is radical in every single part of its leadership positions. And the people whom you are likely to appoint to those kind of positions, you can't find a moderate in the modern-day Democratic Party anywhere in its leadership. There are no Jack Kennedys anymore in the Democratic Party. Well, tell me, who could you pick that would fit the definition of somewhat left moderate to centrist? Well, name one. I'd like to know. Who?
My point is, why pick any of them? Well, we got plenty of qualified people on our side that should fill the building. After all,
but that used to be kind of a common thing to do, though. When you had an election, the leaders of the branch would pick somebody from the other side, just to show comity and unity, and it didn't really hurt that much because both parties weren't that much different from each other in terms of philosophy. That just isn't true anymore.
No.
The Democrats are radical.
And that's why I say we shouldn't do that. We should just, like you say, pick the people who supported him and who are in line with our vision. Because believe me, when the Democrats get control of the power, they push their agenda, and that's why we got Obamacare. That's why this country's all screwed up.
Well, you got to remember, Trump is someone that is fiercely loyal to those that are loyal to him. Now, he's got his set
group.
And
I hope he remains that way.
And he is not going to reach outside that group. Those that showed complete loyalty to him, he gives complete loyalty back. And you see it time after time after time when you hear about these little stories that come out of the woodwork of the kindness he's done for people. Like the story that's going around now, the gentleman and woman with the wife saw his limo on the side of the road with the flat tire. They stopped and helped him change the tire and sent him on his way. And the next thing I know, Trump sends the flowers to the house with a little note saying, your mortgage is paid off. So he's got people these are stories that no one talks about with Donald Trump, and you hear that time and time again, where he's gone into Harlem and he saw someone down and out and helped pick them up and send them on the way. There's one, I forget the name of the boxer, he's a Puerto Rican boxer, that Trump gave a hand up to, because he said, the guy went into the Trump building to look for a job. And the next thing you know, Trump hires him as his limousine driver and gives him a hand and help him with his boxing career. You hear story after story after story.
Even more recent, the homeless person lady that was protecting his Hollywood star, and she got roughed up by the lefties. He went to find her, to help her out. So he has a big heart.
But much more than that, there's something even more important than his individual acts of philanthropy to individual people. Trump is a builder. Trump builds it. Now, he may not be the guy out there laying drywall and, pipe fitting and doing welding and operating a bulldozer, but he relies on those people to make his wealth. He has a great deal of appreciation for people with skills. And in fact, he taught his sons, when they came up to learn the business, he had them doing those grunt work because he knew they had to understand that to have a sense of how to overall manage. And that's one thing he does. He has a genuine appreciation for people who do work and have skill. He is a blue-collar billionaire in the best sense. And that's what a lot of people don't really appreciate. They go, well, how could a billionaire be in touch with a common man? Believe me, Donald Trump, I'm certain, has an appreciation for blue-collar working people who have skills or just work hard. He needs them. Without them, he's nothing.
No. Oh, man, I can't even believe we're almost a whole hour of the show has gone and we still didn't have our guest call in. So I'll have to see what happened with him, with his publicist, and find out what's going on. Because I did call him last night to verify, I had the correct number to call him and bring him onto the show. So we spoke briefly last night. I don't know what happened. Lord knows. But we're just going to keep on rocking on. I mean, I want to thank everyone that's showing up in the chat room and listening in on the studio. Again, I want to remind you, if you want to join the conversation, just press 1. and that flags you and lets me know that you want to come on the air and talk. As I said, this was one of the most amazing and remarkable elections I have ever seen in my life. And the aftermath with these riots. Now, cops are out there, defending these people right to protest, right for free speech, and they're getting hurt. You see they're throwing rocks at them. Someone came into the crowd in Oakland with firecrackers, shooting them at the cops. Oh, come on, guys. I'm glad
you mentioned that, Andy, because you know what? This current president could easily come out and say, look, we lost, and you guys need to get over it, This is uncalled for. It's un-American. Stop, But he doesn't, because that's not the way he thinks. I think he enjoys this.
And we cannot forget the man was educated in a Linskyite institutions.
There you go.
This is what they do. The man is essentially he's familiar with the methods. Remember, get in their face, argue with them. Remember what he told everybody? He told people to snitch on people who were giving out what he considered misinformation about Obamacare. Have we forgotten what this man is? We must never forget what he is. He is a radical at heart. He's got essentially the same instincts as those who form the Rock Front and the brown shirts. Those are his instincts, and those are the people he's aligned with and appeals to. Did you see the video of the Democrat or these protesters who dropped their pants, defecated, picked it up, and wiped it on a Trump sign? This is typical of these people. Oh, I don't know. Wait, no. That's
Twitter.
Not typical of these people. I'm not saying they will defecate in public, pick it up, and put it on a Trump sign. I am going to say, though, that is not that untypical of them.
The violence that we're seeing, plus the buses that are coming in, and I'm willing to bet when they follow the money, they're going to find the Craigslist ads and the buses and everything came out of Soros's pocket. George Soros is the one behind this. He wants to create anarchy. And with these people, he's coming close. But the more we see all this happening on TV, the more Americans are going to get disgusted with these shenanigans, and they're going to say, stop. And this is one of the reasons why Trump has been elected, because people are saying, stop it. Stop the violence. There used to be a point in time where if you had a disagreement with someone on the opposite side of the political spectrum, you could sit down, you could have a debate, you can talk one-on-one to each other, or you could have a public debate. But in the end, the two of you sat down and had coffee together or broke bread. You didn't hate each other. You respected each other's views. You may sway the person to your side or not, but the conversation was there. This is what we're lacking today. They're not allowing a conversation to occur. It is either my way or the highway. And
Annie, I hate to say it, but I think we are seeing in this nihilism and this uncivilizational behavior. We're looking at people, many of them. I mean, the wilder of them. We're looking at people who sacrifice the trappings of civilization. They're returning to the jungle and the rule of tribalism. They've got the instinctual territorial marking behavior of apes. They can't express their outrage articulately. I mean, they're like monkeys in a cage throwing feces. Look at this woman. See this woman, what she did? I mean, they don't have the intelligence. Some of them don't have the intelligence or the tools to comprehend as human beings almost. I think many of them are just crippled by liberals who've been running our school system, and they have never even taught them to think. They literally can't think. They can't reason. They don't know anything about linear reasoning or rational behavior or the scientific method or anything. They only know how to emote. And I knew they'd be used to questions like, well, what do you feel about fill in the blank? Feel, not think, but feel.
Gee, Sarge, are you racist?
I guess so. After all, the being logical. I've literally heard over and over, being logical and rational is racist. Believing in a scientific method is racist. A scientific modern science is colonialism, and this sort of nonsense. Who do you think this is coming from? Where is this unreason coming from? It's coming from the left, cultural Marxists and academics and Marxist professors.
I mean,
all this nonsense.
Yeah, it is a lot of nonsense. And unfortunately, the media picks up on the small groups that are the agitators. And I was watching one woman walking down the street. She was being interviewed by Fox News, and she's telling everyone, this is going to be violent. Lives are going to go down. And as Sue just sent me a text that 5 people in Oakland were shot last night. One of them is in critical condition. That is not a peaceful protest. They are advocating for violence. They are advocating for the overthrow of our government through violent methods. That's treason. That is treason. And whoever is organizing it, whether it's Black Lives Matter or the Occupy movement or George Soros or whatever it is, whoever is behind all of this should be arrested and put on trial for treason, for advocating violence, for advocating the murder of fellow American citizens.
Yeah, and by the way, the woman who was defecating in public and wiped it on the Trump sign, that was a white woman. She looked like she was a white woman anyway.
She was.
Yeah, well,
did you see the video where they beat up, I think it's like about 5 blacks, beat up this one white guy because he said he voted for Trump or something, or they saw a Trump sign on his car.
Yeah.
You know, that's savagery, that shouldn't be tolerated in this country. And fortunately, they got this on video, so they should be able to, round these guys up and charge them accordingly.
Well, we've got to understand, we've got an agitator-in-chief sitting in the Oval Office. We've got to remember his history of the things he has said publicly on record. It's not like he can run away from it. He says, like he quoted from the Kevin Costner movie, the Untouchables. Remember? If they bring a gun, if they bring a knife, we bring a gun to the fight.
Yeah, I remember.
And all that sort of thing. He's been kind of shying away from that. But he said these things when he was president.
It's amazing what this administration has done. You don't hear Obama coming out and asking for calm, asking for, let the process work. You don't hear him saying that. And where's the Clinton campaign in this? She came out, she did her boo-hoo yesterday afternoon, and she's disappeared again. Where is that campaign coming out with a statement calling for calm? Instead you have these colleges with these crying circles. You've got professors going, well, we're going to have counseling. And actually one college, I think it was in Minnesota, actually said, well, if you can't take the finals because you're upset over Trump becoming president, we'll excuse you from the finals. Really, folks? How are you going to handle real life once you get out of that college and you don't have those safe zones, those crying circles, and those professors and deans that are pampering you? What do you want them to do? Change your diapers for you too?
Yeah.
Really?
They need to retreat to their safe zones on campus.
Annie, isn't it appropriate that we're talking about this thing on Veterans Day when men their age or younger were exiting the landing craft on Omaha Beach, or we had men their age or younger confronting a tough, resolute North Vietnamese enemy in the Ia Drang Valley or the A Shau or the demilitarized zone, or you had other Americans fighting their way out of encirclement of 400,000 Chinese at the Chosin Reservoir and with no support, or men facing down Panzer legions in the Ardennes. They didn't have any safe spaces.
No.
They want a safe space they could look for, and they were their age or younger.
That is exactly
these snowflakes. I don't know what the future holds for a lot of these snowflakes.
No, I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what they're not talking about is that under 8 years of Barack Obama, his real legacy should be the fact that the Democrats have lost over 1,600 elected seats across the nation under this guy.
Thank you.
That's what they should be talking about.
Sarge, I'm going to put you on mute for a while because we do have our guest with us. Be right back. Okay, and let's bring on board with the United States Justice Foundation, Michael Connelly. And Michael, I got to tell you, I gave you the highest compliment today at the start of the show. I read, as my dedication, An American Soldier Died Today, that you wrote back on November 1st. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you for reading it because it's important to me.
It was very powerful.
I still have two sons. I still have two sons on active duty. So,
yeah, I've got a step grandson in the Marine Corps right now, heading over to the Mideast. So yes, it's in today's day and age what is going on, and I fear for our men and women in the military. I mean, right now they now have transgenders that they're recruiting for the Navy. I thought if you went into the military, you had to be free of drugs and your psychological has to be clean. Why are they bringing people in there that you know is going to be a problem, that they're not going to be able to fight? Michael, what is going on in this world today?
Well, it's all political correctness. I mean, Barack Obama has hated the military from the get-go, and he's done everything he could to destroy our military, and he's done a very good job. I mean, we have the smallest military prior to World War II. Morale is rock bottom among many of our soldiers. My oldest son, when he's done 4 tours in Afghanistan and 2 in Iraq, and he came back from the second tour in Afghanistan and told me, he said, "Dad, we are snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. We're going to lose out on everything we gained in Afghanistan because of political correctness." And that's what we're dealing with here. And that's what we're dealing with the media, the constant barrage of our soldiers and everything they did, putting them under a microscope and complaining about any time that they actually did some fighting, if it wasn't in a politically correct manner. I saw this in Vietnam, during the Vietnam War. I knew then that we were going to lose that war. Not that the American soldiers or military were going to lose it, but that the politicians were going to lose it. We, in fact, never lost a battle during the Vietnam War. We had won it on 2 separate occasions, really, and this was admitted to by the commanding general of the North Vietnamese Army in a book he wrote later. We had won it after the Tet Offensive because we virtually destroyed the Viet Cong as a fighting force. And then when the government decided to pull us out, the North Vietnamese Army had been stopped. The South Vietnamese Army was large enough to keep them from reinvading the South. And the next thing we know, the politicians cut off the money to equip and arm the South Vietnamese Army. The North sees this, they invade, and Vietnam falls. And to this day, if you look in the history books in our schools, they're blaming the loss of the war in Vietnam on the military because they don't want to accept the responsibility that the politicians did it themselves. So Obama is taking this to the next level and to undo our military, destroy the morale of the military, and, treat our military members. Religion used to be very important in the military, and still is to a lot of members. But they're not allowed to even talk about their religion. I know one soldier, she was reprimanded for having a Bible on her desk at her workplace. She wasn't reading from the Bible to other people. She wasn't, trying to talk to other people into becoming Christians. She just had that for her own comfort. And she was chastised and reprimanded for that. And things happen to other soldiers. And it's so widespread in the military that a lot of chaplains have left because they're not allowed to practice their religion. They're not allowed to counsel soldiers or sailors or Marines or anybody who might be having a problem that, somebody would consider politically incorrect. So they're not allowed to practice their religion. They're not allowed to assist members of the military in practicing their religions. So they're quitting, and I can't blame them.
No, I don't blame them either. My ex-husband was in the Marine Corps, and even back then, you couldn't even have a political bumper sticker. If you supported one person over the other for president or town council, you were not allowed to drive onto the base with a bumper sticker on your car. I mean, where is freedom of speech for the military? Why does the military not have the same constitutional rights that the average citizen has? Oh, wait a minute, or even the constitutional rights or benefits that we give to illegal aliens and refugees.
Oh, exactly. The members of the illegals in this country are treated better than our military. And a prime example of this, and I think I've talked about this before in your show, is something that we at the United States Justice Foundation have been working on now for 4 years. We just won a case here recently, but there's a lot more to do, and that's what's happening to our veterans when it comes to their Second Amendment rights. Veterans are getting letters from the VA saying that because of your physical or mental disability, we're going to declare you incompetent to handle your own financial affairs. And then once they're declared incompetent, and there's no due process here, the burden is on the veteran to prove they're competent. And they're being declared incompetent because of minor PTSD, because of minor depression, because they let their spouses pay the family bills. The case we just won was a veteran right here in Texas, and I've got this in writing from the VA. They declared him incompetent to handle his own financial affairs because he had his bills automatically paid by the bank at the beginning of every month out of his checking account. And they said, okay, you're incompetent, and by the way, since we declared you incompetent, you can no longer own, purchase, possess, or transport firearms or ammunition. Then they send the name and address and Social Security number, of course, to the FBI, and the FBI puts these veterans on the NICS list, the National Institute Criminal Background Check list, as people who cannot purchase firearms because they have been adjudicated to be mentally incompetent to the point of being a danger to themselves or others. The veterans, none of them have even seen a psychiatrist for the most part. There's been no adjudication process. They have no due process at all in this thing. And we now have about 250,000 veterans who have lost their right to own a firearm.
A quarter million? A quarter million?
Quarter of a million, at least, that we know about. And now their family members are getting notified by the VA that, by the way, since you live with someone who cannot own a firearm, you can't own one either.
Oh,
and veterans are finding themselves put on the no-fly list. So we're appealing these things right and left, and we found out it took us a lawsuit to do it because the VA would not respond to our Freedom of Information Act request. But we won the lawsuit and got a copy of a confidential memorandum between the VA and the FBI, where basically the FBI says, you send us the names of veterans you want on the list, we will not question it, we will have no adjudication process, we will automatically put them on the list as being mentally ill. Now, we've won some cases where we've gotten it reversed, the veterans' ruling of incompetency reversed, but the FBI still refuses to take them off the list.
Oh.
So right now we're working with one veteran preparing a lawsuit in the case. So we're doing a lot of these. If there are individual veterans out there who have this problem, we need to contact me at Michael at USJF, that's for United States Justice Foundation, USJFmail.net, because we're representing all these veterans and their families for free. And we're trying to raise money to continue to do that. So if anybody wants to donate, they can go to USJF.net and donate. But the main thing is that if veterans need our help, they will not be charged a penny by us, and they need to contact me.
All right. Well, I've got a veteran here on the line. We just had him on before. Matter of fact, Vietnam veteran also. Let's bring back Sarge because he raised his hand with a question or comment. Sarge, we've got Michael Connelly, United States Justice Foundation. Your question or comment?
Yeah, I was in the midst of hearing your response to Annie when she asked you about why is it that soldiers don't have the same, members of the armed forces don't have the same constitutional rights as everyone else. I didn't hear what your answer was, and I wonder if you could repeat it for me, please.
Well, essentially there is no justification for it, for soldiers not to have the same constitutional rights as other people have, particularly if they're acting in a private capacity. Now, if a captain, say, in the United States Army comes forward and says that I am going to vote for such and such in this election, and I'm going to order all of my men to do the same thing, that obviously crosses the line. But if that same soldier puts on Facebook, has a Facebook page, or sends out emails to his friends encouraging them to vote for somebody, he's exercising his free speech and should be allowed to do so. And if a soldier wants to, during his break, read a Bible at his desk or his workplace, he should have a right to do that. It should not be declared politically incorrect by the Army. He's not proselytizing. He's not trying to encourage anybody else to become part of his religion. He is just reading the Bible on his own and for his own purposes, and that's freedom of religion. And that's what he's taken away
my
right
understanding now. of this, as I've always understood it, and was educated in my time, 26 years of service as both active duty soldier. I was an infantry in an armor veteran in Vietnam, and when I got in the National Guard, I was in various units in the military police battalion for the rest of my time in the service. And my understanding is that soldiers don't get their rights from the Constitution. They get their rights from the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is a different kettle of fish. You, in fact, soldiers, which is another reason why we honor them, is that they give up constitutional rights that everyone else takes for granted. They don't have the same constitutional rights, such as the right to withdraw your labor, the right to decide where you're going to work, the right to be safe from occupational hazards, things that, we take for granted. You just don't have it in the armed forces.
Well, the segment of things that you're talking about are not per se constitutional rights. I'm talking about rights like freedom of speech and freedom of religion and the right to keep and bear arms. Those are essential constitutional rights that are not taken away by the Uniform Code of Military Justice. They may be modified as to when they can be exercised, but soldiers still have the right to freedom of speech, should have the right to freedom of religion, and should have the right to, peaceably assemble with other soldiers. If they want to talk about something, they want to get together, they want to talk about something, they can do so. That doesn't interfere with the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It does supersede a lot of things, and that is where you want to work. You get assigned by the military to do that. And when you sign up for the military, and you and I both wrote the same blank check to the military that said we are putting our lives on the line, we are putting ourselves on the line, we are going to dedicate ourselves to defending the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And we say that we will give our lives if necessary for that. But the soldiers do have some constitutional rights, but what I'm talking about, the context that we're dealing with veterans. We're dealing with people who are no longer in the military, who are veterans of the military, who are being denied basic constitutional rights, such as the right to due process under the law, the rights to freedom from illegal searches under the Fourth Amendment, and specifically the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. They are no longer under the Uniform Code of Military Justice once they have been discharged from the military. But they're still being denied.
I will agree with you. I've been pretty much disturbed by a lot of these regulations about mental health. These mental health rules that when a soldier is being psychiatrically examined, that he can be subject to his Second Amendment rights being taken away because he might pose a danger to someone, and a doctor being required to disclose it. Now, on that, I'd be in complete agreement with you. When we're no longer bound by the UCMJ, we all have the same rights as anyone else, if not maybe a bit more. But, I would agree with you there.
That's very, very true. And then when you mention the doctors, saying something that gets a soldier, causes a veteran to lose their Second Amendment rights, in most of the cases we have seen, no doctor is involved. This is some counselor, this is some bureaucrat, and the VA that decides that this person is incompetent to handle their own financial affairs. When a doctor is involved, they're usually not a psychiatrist, and they don't say that they have given a mental examination to the veteran. They just say that, I don't think he can pay his own bills. Well, when this time, somebody having trouble paying their own bills, forgetting to pay their own bills sometimes, how does that translate into mental illness that disqualifies them from owning a firearm? If that's the criteria that the VA is using right now, that's what we're fighting.
Yeah, well, a lot of people have that problem given the Obama years. So I guess a lot of people ought to be deprived of their constitutional rights, huh?
All right, Sergeant, I want to thank you. I'm going to put you on mute because we got another caller in here. Let me bring this other caller up. It's a Skype caller. You're on the air live with Southern Sense. I'm your hostess, Annie, the radio chick, with our guest, Michael Connelly of the United States Justice Foundation. You have a comment or question? And I'm sorry, what's your name, too?
Yeah, my name is Rez. I'm from London, and thank you very much for taking my call.
And Kate, your question or comment?
Yeah, sure, indeed. Yes, right now, with this massive, the third night of riots in America will continue, as all the headlines, all the CNN, all the BBC, And everywhere else in Europe, they say the third night of violence and civil disobedience will continue in the United States. So this is a danger to your democracy and also democracy of the world. And it's very bad, because, okay, when Bush was elected in your office, Bush was a puppet. Everybody knows that. Bush was part of cannibals, part of the New World Order. But nobody did such a thing. But now, suddenly, because we have somebody like a Trump that also is a part of cannibal, is a part of New World Order, but is a different category. I mean, it's a little bit, different, you can say it. But now suddenly we have all these riots in major cities. I mean, Muslims are beating up daily, blacks, whites, everybody are beating each other up. I mean, what the hell is going on in your country? Can you define, please?
All right. Thank you for the question. And Michael, you actually wrote an article, The Wimpiest Generation, which really kind of does explain it. You want to answer what is going on with these crazies out there?
Well, we have a generation that has not been educated. In fact, they have been dumbed down by the education system ever since they started in elementary school. They have been deliberately dumbed down. Then when they get to college, and even before that in many high schools, they are subjected to propaganda on a massive scale, very similar to the propaganda that was used in Nazi Germany. And they hear the same thing from the news media. And they're told how poorly they're being treated. They're being told how they've lost their rights and how whites are privileged and nobody else is. And if you are white, then you have to feel guilty about what's so-called white privilege. And so they've turned our kids into a bunch of wimps that have to have safe spaces. I mean, I couldn't believe it the other night. Well, I believed it, but it was still appalling that some of the universities were canceling classes and providing emotional counseling to students because of Donald Trump's election. Now, that is utterly stupid. It's providing these so-called safe spaces where they can go hide if somebody dares to mention something that offends them, like, hey, I support the Second Amendment, or I oppose abortion. Well, then they have to have their safe space to go hide in. Well, guess what? I've got two sons that's in the service. My oldest son's safe space right now is in Germany because he's not under fire. He's been in 94 months of combat since 9/11. That's his safe space, is being on a American military base where he can go back into fire again. And my youngest son is a Black Hawk pilot. They don't go and try to hide from their duties. They don't go and try to hide from the real world. They do what needs to be done. And what we have in this country right now is we have a bunch of kids, and they've been taught this, and we've got a bunch of so-called millennials and just wimps who are taught, well, everybody gets a trophy just for showing up at a sporting event or a sporting competition. Everybody should be treated equally. Everybody should be treated fairly. Nobody should have to work for what they get. Everybody should just be given what they need by the government. That's the philosophy that we're dealing with. That's the philosophy that we see being carried out in the streets right now. Remember when Donald Trump hesitated to say that he would accept the outcome of the election? And there was valid reason for that, because we know the election in 2012 was probably stolen. And the left was appalled. How dare you do that? How dare you object to the outcome of an American election? That's an affront to our democracy. By the way, we're not a democracy, we're a constitutional republic, but none of the left knows that. They don't know the difference. They don't know what you want is, for that matter. But they were all up in arms about this, and then the minute that Donald Trump gets elected, they tell these millennials, leave your safe spaces and go out on the streets and demonstrate against the fact that the majority of the American people, the majority of the states in this country, want a change and elected Donald Trump. So much for refusing to accept the election being bad. Now they're claiming that's a good thing, and everybody ought to be out in the streets, burning down things, burning American flags. By the way, I know that the Supreme Court has said that people have a right to burn an American flag. But I'm a veteran, and I proudly wear my hat that says U.S. Army veteran around. Now, I live in rural Texas at this point. But if I'm in a city or anywhere and I see anybody about to burn my flag, I'm going to exercise my freedom of expression rights, and I'm going to kick their butts. And that's no if, and, or but about that. That's what I'm going to do. Because I had friends die fighting for that flag. My father fought for that flag. My family has been in every war since the American Revolution. We've had people in it. And I've written a best-selling book about my father's unit during World War II called Mortarmen. People read that book and they can't believe what these guys went through. They landed in the second wave at Utah Beach, and they fired those big 4.2 mortars. They were in combat for 326 straight days, including the Battle of the Bulge, the Hurricane Forest, and that's what they did. Their safe space, when they left their safe spaces, they were climbing into landing boats so they could invade Europe, and they fought for 326 straight days. Can you imagine some of these wimps out there right now in the college campuses that are hiding, cowering in their classrooms or in safe rooms because they're so afraid somebody might say something that they find offensive? Can you imagine any of them getting on a landing craft and going to a hostile beach? Won't happen.
That leads me to my next question, Michael. Our military traditions have been diminished or totally eliminated. Morale is very low. PC is out of control. And members of our armed forces, I've been told, have timeout cards when they get stressed out. Do you think any of this will change under Trump?
Well, I certainly hope it will. I mean, he seems to be saying the right things at this point. He certainly wants to take better care of our veterans. And one of the things that I have sent him information about and will continue to push him on is this Second Amendment issue with veterans and how that needs to be resolved. And we need to push the U.S. Senate on this, too, because this has been brought up twice in the United States Senate to pass legislation that would reverse this action by the VA for these veterans and stop them from doing any more of it. At both times, it was defeated on the floor of the Senate because they couldn't get the 60 votes for torture. And that, by the way, is something that Mitch McConnell needs to just trash, because that, to me, is unconstitutional. I know the Senate has a right to make their own rules, but that doesn't mean that they can circumvent the Constitution, because when they have 60 votes to pass something, and that diminishes the value of my vote for the senators that I vote for from the state of Texas, and other people the same way. Now, Trump is supposedly going to, I think he's going to assemble a good team of military advisors. I personally like General Flynn very much. I think he's going to be a good advisor. He needs a good Secretary of Defense, and they need to go into the military and just clean house. And when I say that, I say get rid of some of these generals in there, and particularly the intelligence analysts who have been shills for Obama, who have been changing intelligence, because I was a military intelligence officer. They've been changing the intelligence to make a rosier picture for Obama and the American people to see, so Obama will not look bad. They don't want us to know how bad ISIS had gotten. They didn't want us to know how dangerous they were. They didn't want us to know how widespread they were. So people like that need to be removed from the military. If you're going to be in the military, you need to do your job, and primarily you need to know that you will be allowed to do your job, that you're not going to be under political pressure. And I think Donald Trump knows this, and if he doesn't, I think the men and women he appoints to head his military team will know it and will implement it.
Well, he has.
I'm glad you mentioned that about the. Go ahead.
He has appointed General Flynn to his advisory staff, the transition staff. So Flynn is already on, and I think I saw Alan West's name on there. he just put out a press release just before we went on air, and I read out all the names, and he's got some solid, good people that he's put into that team. The only one I have questions with is Chris Christie, because he's under legal problems right now. But have you heard, Michael, of this legislation that they're going to try to bring up in the lame duck session called Veterans First Act? Matter of fact, I shot it off to my Congressman, Mark Sanford, actually sent it to his personal account, and he sent me back just a matter of a couple hours later that he's going to be looking into that, because Concerned Veterans for America are fighting it. They're saying it's chock full of red tape, more bureaucracy, and it will make it impossible to fire any incompetent official over at the VA. Have you heard about this act?
No, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me that they're going to try to push something like that through, or Obama is going to do it by executive order, because I think the man's going to go nuts in the next couple of months in putting out and signing as many executive orders as he can to damage the military, to protect the bureaucracy, to keep people from getting fired. What's happened in the VA has been absolutely horrible, and we reported on it with the United States Justice Foundation. We've been working on it. It's not just the VA taking away veterans' rights; they're taking away their lives. Veterans, and I know a lot of people who work at the VA, and they're, for the most part, very good people. But the ones at the top have been corrupt for years and continue to be corrupt, and nobody's been fired. Obama puts in a new leader of the VA who's supposed to clean house, and he said he's cleaned house. It turns out there's maybe one or two people that have been fired. Everybody else has just been either promoted or transferred to a different job. Nobody's been reprimanded, so they haven't stopped doing what they're doing right now, and I think the act you're talking about is going to try to perpetuate that and allow that to continue, and I hope the Trump people catch on to what that is, and I certainly am going to, I haven't seen a copy of the bill itself yet, but I'm certainly going to take it apart piece by piece if there's things in there that I think are dangerous, and I'm going to report that on my blog, and I'll talk about it on my radio show, and we'll start putting pressure on Congress, the incoming Congress, and the current Congress, for that matter.
Yeah, because I shot out to all of my members, and I'm going to be shooting out later on to all the listeners here to tell them to contact Congress. And there's a link on Concerned Veterans for America website where they can just fill in their name, and automatically the letter will go to their congressman. It's scary because it's a misnomer. They're saying Veterans First Act, so it sounds really, really great. It's like this is something we really can get behind and vote for. But when I looked at the sponsors on that and those that are supporting the sponsors, like Al Franken, Dianne Feinstein, the second I see Al Franken on anything, I know it's bad. So I just shot that over to my congressman, and he is going to be working on it. So hopefully something will be done to reverse the track of that legislation. You know, it is very, very scary when you think of some of these things that this administration is going to try to do in the next 70 days. And time is running out.
Yeah, and our people like Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell need to be on their toes, because they're going to try to put more stuff like this through his legislation. And we've got too many members of Congress, both Republicans and Democrats, who don't even read stuff. They'll look at the title. Oh, that sounds good. The first paragraph that supposedly explains what the bill is all about, and they'll say, okay, that sounds good. My constituents will like that. They won't get upset if I vote for it. And they vote for it. And they don't even read what's in it. And then all of a sudden, when everything starts falling apart, they say, well, gee, I didn't mean for this to happen. Well, that's what, we have with Obamacare. In 2009, I wrote an article that I sent out as an email to some friends, because I had read the entire Obamacare proposal at that time. It was House Bill 3200. It was only 1,100 pages long, and it ultimately became 2,700. But I read it and wrote an article about how unconstitutional it was and the damage it was going to do. Well, that thing was read by millions of people. It went all over the country. Got thousands and thousands of emails on it. So that's what started my blog. But if you recall, when that bill was ultimately passed, Nancy Pelosi said, well, we have to pass the bill in order to find out what's in it. Mm-hmm. And now we know what's in it, and now we know the damage is being done. to the American people, and it's basically just as I and others predicted was going to happen. But we still have members of Congress up there who don't read the legislation they're voting on, and that has got to stop.
It's funny because I read both bills, the House bill and the Senate bill, and I put on my blog back in, it was between August and October of 2009, breaking it down, what is bad in it. And I have a series of different, blogs on them, what was in Obamacare. And if you can do that and I can do that, why couldn't Congress do that?
Exactly. And people were so surprised that I had read all of this and digested it and understood what they were trying to do, even the nuances where they were trying to hide things in there. And most members of Congress were not aware at the time they voted on this that it also gave the federal government the right to take over the student loan industry. And that's one of the things they're using right now in our colleges. They're using the fact that they control student loans. And, of course, we hear all these crocodile tears from Hillary during the campaign and from Bernie Sanders, well, we need to give everybody free education, and student loan debt is way too high. Well, guess who controls student loans? The federal government. They're the ones that have caused the student loan debt to go up so high and the cost of college to go up so high. And taking taxpayers' money to pay for their mistakes is not going to help anybody, certainly not the taxpayers. But that's the type of situation we're dealing with, where Congress passes something, they don't know what's going to happen, when the negative effects start taking place, they blame it on everybody but themselves.
When I broke it down, the Obamacare, people were surprised when I said, are you aware that this bill allows government to come into your home, look to see what you're watching on TV, how your house is done, what food you have in your cabinet and refrigerator, and how you're raising your children. And if they should find anything they object to, they can take your children away from you. No ands, ifs, or buts. And people go, no, that's not in the bill. And I said, are you also aware that you can be enslaved by the government? What do you mean? Slavery is illegal. No, it's not. It's in Obamacare. They can conscript you and decide what labor they want you to perform without any payment. Isn't that slavery, Michael? And yet people are going, you can't overturn Obamacare. There's so many reasons in there why we have to overturn Obamacare.
Yeah, I think the Congress is finally on the right track right now. They have, passed legislation, the House has, to repeal Obamacare, but they haven't passed legislation to replace it with something that is much more free market oriented. And finally, it appears that they've drawn up that legislation, and they're going to be trying to get that through certainly right after Donald Trump takes office, because he hopefully will sign off on it. But it's got to be, Obamacare's got to go. I mean, we have socialized medicine in this country, at least the beginnings of it. And Hillary wanted to continue the process and make it totally government-controlled health care. And, this whole thing, let's put everything in perspective as to what's happened under Obama and what would continue happening if Hillary was in office, and what the media and the left wants to have continue happening regardless of who's in office. And that is, when Adolf Hitler took control of Germany, when he was elected Chancellor of Germany, he was elected, you remember that. He was elected by the German people. But he wanted to consolidate his power and become a dictator. So the first thing he did was to totally nationalize health care, because he felt like if I'm in control of the access to health care, I can control the people. That was the first thing he did. That was the first thing Obama did. The second thing that Hitler did was to start to disarm the German people. And he began by disarming the veterans, because the veterans of World War I, the German veterans of World War I, had taken an oath of office very similar to the one I take, the U.S. military. Not an oath to defend a person or a political party or an ideology specifically. It's an obligation both to defend the Constitution of the United States, defend the people of the United States, and defend our constitutional republic. The soldiers had taken a similar oath, but he knew that they were a danger to him. because that they might rise up against what he was trying to do. We have 23 million veterans in this country. Most of us still believe it. And this is something that any government in there needs to remember. But that's what Obama wanted to disarm, and has been successfully disarming many of our veterans. And I wrote about a year ago that the next step we have to go after Social Security recipients. That appeared in the news about 6 months ago, that they in fact were going to implement the same type of program that they're using against the veterans on Social Security recipients. So we've got everything in place, virtually, to take away our rights, to destroy our constitutional republic, and the left is going to continue to push for that. Now, the American people have stood up and said, enough is enough, we're tired of elitists in Washington, but we need to hold Donald Trump's feet to the fire and hold the Republican leaders in Congress, their feet to the fire, say, okay, this is what we elected you to do, so you need to do it. And we need to make sure that they defend the Constitution, that they protect the Constitution, that they protect the Second Amendment, and all the Bill of Rights for that matter. And that they not start caving in to liberal pressure or the political correctness cries of the left, because they're going to keep whining, and they're going to keep making demands, and they're going to keep threatening, and they're going to keep calling anybody who disagrees with anything they say as racist or homophobic. You know, they can call me all the names I want. They want to. I don't care. Because, as I've written before and said before, I'm a published author. I am the Executive Director of the United States Justice Foundation. I'm a radio talk show host. I'm a freelance writer. That's what I've done. But that's not who I am. Who I am, I'm a United States soldier.
That is...
I will always be.
Yeah. And when I read your piece at the dedication, towards the end, I was starting to cry. It was hard for me to see the words. But there is so much pride that goes into the American military man and woman. And what this administration has done to destroy the morale of them. My godson was going to go into the Marine Corps, and shortly after Obama became president, he says, not under this president. I cannot serve under him. But yet there's men and women out there still serving under him because they believe in this country more than they believe in his administration. And they're just waiting for someone to come in there with strength and power to rebuild our nation and make us great again. And that's what this whole election was all about. That's everything what this election was about, because we don't like the direction this country is going in. And you figure out one thing with what Hitler did also in Germany. He took control of the education system by instituting the kindergarten and all the way on up. So if he controlled the education system, he controlled the minds and hearts of the German people. And again, this is what we have here in the United States, control of our education system. And it's so important that we get rid of that and go back to local communities taking care of their own stuff.
I agree with that.
Exactly.
Speaking about the VA, I don't know if you caught Obama's speech this afternoon at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Did you catch that at all, Michael?
Did I hear what now?
Did you catch Obama's speech today when he laid the wreath at the tomb?
Just part of it. We were on our way out the door to have breakfast with some other veterans, so I didn't hear all of it, no.
Towards the very end, he was talking about the VA system, and he said, we've got to stop the privatization partnership with the VA. And people were clapping with that. And I'm going, wait a minute, does anyone understand what he just said? Can you imagine? He said that on Today, telling veterans he doesn't want to reform the VA and allow them to go to a doctor of their own choice?
Yeah, exactly. I hadn't heard that, but that's been his outlook from the beginning, and he does not like the idea of, he doesn't like the idea of government not being in control of everything, and that includes the health care of veterans. I mean, the man is a socialist, a communist, whatever you want to call him. He believes in total government control of everything. And you talked about education. not just education. He wants government to be in control of the news media. He wants the news media to be basically all of them from the Joseph Goebbels School of Journalism, which was Hitler's propaganda organ. And so for him to say that is just another indication that we have done the right thing, the American people, by voting in someone who believes in the private sector, believes in free enterprise, and believes that the private sector in this country is better equipped to do a lot of things, and that includes treating our veterans, than the government, which basically is incapable of doing much of anything correctly.
Matter of fact, my sister sent me an email. My mother lives in the Caribbean, and she sent some packages, one to my sister and one to me. And my sister was trying to track down where the package was that was mailed out October 29th. And she goes, amazing, the U.S. Post Office is broken. Folks, if we cannot even deliver the mail properly, how can we take care of our senior citizens? How are we going to take care of our veterans? How can we take care of anyone? And yet this is what government is asking us to do, to trust them to take care of our lives. Sit back, enjoy the free stuff. You'll get a free phone, you get Section 8 housing, you get food stamp, you get free medical care. Anything else we can do for you? How about a back rub? This is the mentality of today's youth. Give me, give me, give me.
Exactly. And you know, one of the things that disturbed me about the military, too, is, and this was done very quietly, very few people even realized what was happening, but at one point a couple of years ago, we had 13,000 veteran majors and captains in the United States Army alone that were purged. Now, this was part of an ongoing purge by Obama of officers that were well known to be combat efficient, be efficient soldiers. He got rid of them, and who has he been trying to replace them with? Illegals. He's been encouraging the military to enlist people who have broken our laws by entering the country illegally. Now, if they've entered the country illegally, then I want a fast track to citizenship. I encourage them to enlist in the military because they haven't broken our laws, and I think they should be allowed a fast track to citizenship. But if they come into this country illegally, now we're telling them, we want you to enlist in the military, and of course, since you've already broken our laws, we really won't expect you to obey the military laws or anything, but you will listen to the President of the United States and you will do what he wants, not necessarily what your officers want. So we're going to be putting people in the military, have been putting people in the military, who have no real loyalty to this country. And Obama has even had the oath changed. The people who became naturalized citizens, the oath always had them say that they would serve to defend the United States of America, either in the military or in a civilian capacity. They would defend this country. Obama had that taken out of the oath because he thought it might offend Muslims.
It also explains the recent ruling that now they're allowing tattoos lower down on the arm, on the neck. Why else? Because now you can get gang members to join into the military. Illegal immigrants that come across that are members of gangs, because they have these tattoos all over the place. The military has revised the ruling on tattoos. Folks, it's right there in front of us. You know, the dismantling of America. And we've got 70 days to keep an eye on Obama and stop whatever he's doing. Michael, just 70 days. Can we stop him from doing any more of the bullcrap?
Well, I think we can, because I think the House of Representatives, of course, is still in control of Republicans, and the Senate is still in the hands of Republicans. It will remain that way. So I can't see the Congress passing any legislation that Obama wants during the next 72 days. But I do see Obama doing more and more things by executive order. And this is why we have to hold Trump's feet to the fire when he gets elected and make sure that he starts reversing those executive orders. And also doing things like the Union Small Arms Treaty, which Obama had signed almost 2 years ago and has never sent to the Senate for ratification because he knows it won't get 2/3 of the votes in the Senate. Trump needs to just say, okay, this is dissolved. We are no longer a part of the United Nations Treaty. If he has to, go ahead and send it to the Senate and let them make it official. Let them reject it. We got the same thing with the climate change treaty. So anything that Trump does by executive order is subject to be reversed. And anything that he does by executive action, and by that means, gets the EPA or some other federal bureaucracy to go out and do issue more regulations and this sort of thing, Trump can also reverse that. So we need to make sure he does that. The most important thing, and the reason I thought this election was crucial to the future of our country, is he is going to be appointing a Supreme Court justice. We need to make sure that justice is a solid constitutionalist along the lines of Antonin Scalia. Trump has promised this. He needs to follow through with it. And then Ruth Ginsburg, she says she's going to leave the country, was going to leave the country, resign, leave the country if Trump got elected. I hope she keeps try to force her to keep her problem. And, don't let the door hit her in the butt on the way out. But, that gives Trump a second one to a point. I think Kennedy is probably going to retire. So that's number 3 for Trump. And all that can happen in the first 4 years. We just need to make sure that he doesn't do what Senate Republicans have so often done, and that is go, well, this guy's not so bad, maybe he doesn't fully believe in the Second Amendment or the First Amendment, but we can live with him. No, we can't. We're looking at Supreme Court justices being appointed that are probably going to be young enough so they will be on the court for 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Go ahead, Curtis.
I just got one question. I mentioned in the earlier segment that under Obama's 8-year reign, the Democrats have lost over 1,600 elected seats. Now, with the 2018 midterms coming up, from what I'm hearing, they may lose a lot more. How much will this damage that party and their influence?
Yeah, I think they've been severely damaged, and I think it's mostly self-inflicted. And they're too stupid to realize that Hillary Clinton ran as an elitist candidate. All of her speeches, she was talking down to the American people. And her comments about deplorables, I mean, that was something that was totally stupid, that she never should have done that. She automatically alienated a large block of voters. She assumed that she was going to win the election simply because of the fact that she was a woman and her last name was Clinton. So she talked down to the American people. The Democrats have been doing this for years, and they've been paying the price. Now, 2 years from now, and this is why I think that Donald Trump has a good opportunity to get some really good, solid legislation through the House and Senate. Because, first of all, I think Mitch McConnell, as I've pointed out, should get rid of the cloture rule. But even if he doesn't, I think there are a lot of Democrats who are going to be forced into a position of having to vote for things the American people want them to do and what Trump wants them to do, simply due to the fact that you have 25 Democrats whose seats are up for re-election in 2018 and only like 9 Republicans. So the Democrats are vulnerable to losing enough seats in 2 years that they couldn't regain control of the Senate for years and years. So I'm in favor of the Democrats continuing down the course they're on. They're self-destructing. I'm going to do everything I can to help them along. And so I applaud it, and I hope that Whoopi Goldberg and Barbara Streisand and some of these other Hollywood idiots, I hope they actually do leave. As a matter of fact, California is threatening to secede. I've said for years that we just need to cut California off and let it float out to sea. It's the People's Republic of California these days. So if they want to secede, so much for it. But anyway, like I said, I'm pushing for the Democrats to just continue down the path they're on, because it's a self-destructive path, and I think they're pretty much done if they do that.
You sound like me, the left coast. Just let it, a good earthquake, knock it off and let it float out to the Pacific somewhere. Make beachfront in Nevada. Oh, man. I'm just looking down to the clock. We're down to about 9 minutes left to the clock. We've had so much fun speaking with you. There's so much more that we could have talked about because you also have a fascinating legal paper you put up on your website back in September about the constitutional case for an interstate border compact. And I love it, where actually you're saying that Congress never had the power to regulate immigration. Neither does the president. That is up to the individual states to do. And there's so much more we could talk about, but the time is running out. It's been so much fun always having you on here.
Well, I appreciate you having me. I look forward to doing it again real soon.
Oh, you're always welcome. Is Jesse still doing your bookings? Because I didn't see anything from him.
No, actually, I'm doing my own. What we've done with the Justice Foundation is we have so many cases that we're working on. In the courts of appeal and in the U.S. Supreme Court. And now we're going to be working on the interstate compact with states around the country, and we're going to be testifying in front of the committees that we have cut our staff out in California down to very few people. Basically, we're putting all of our money, anything people donate to us, goes into the cases we're working on, goes into defending veterans and that sort of thing. So I said, look, it's nice to have somebody doing my booking, but just let me do my own. And so basically, if you want me on the show, give me a call.
Oh, well, I've got you on speed dial. And I'm reminding everyone to go to your website, usjf.net. The link is in the show page, so people can just click on it, go directly over to you. And you're doing fantastic work. And I got to tell you, funny thing is, right after the election results showed that Trump was going to be a winner, I called a friend of mine up that's up in Toronto. And I think Curtis knows who I'm talking about. She's a friend of the show. And I just, when she picked up the phone, I said, hey, listen, we want to know if you have any rooms available for rent, any extra rooms, because Barbara Streisand's heading up that way along with a bunch of others that are crying in their soup. Can you put them up? And it took her a couple of seconds to realize I was pulling her leg. So, too, I couldn't resist teasing my Canadian pal.
I love it.
Oh, yeah. So we have to just give sympathy to the Canadians because they still have Justin Trudeau, and they're going to have him for a while. So good luck with that, guys. But want everyone to check back onto the show. Check out the website for Michael at usjf.net. If you got loose change in your pocket, make a donation and help our veterans. Today is Veterans Day. And by the way, check out which restaurants in your locality are offering veterans a free meal today. This is America's way of saying thank you. A lot of great restaurants like Chili's, what did I see? Applebee's. I know Denny's is doing it. So I want to thank those organizations for taking care of our vets. If you see a vet out there, stop and thank them for all the hard work they've done in protecting and defending our nation. Michael, thank you so much. And we'll be talking again soon.
Thank you, Annie. Talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
All right. Good night. God bless. Service. All right. Curtis, we're going to be back on Tuesday with Phyllis Criswell. She was running for school board. What was that? The teeth in backwards. Putnam County? Yeah. Unfortunately, she did not win the seat. But she will be our guest, and we'll just go over the election and whatever else is going on with education and the move to get rid of Common Core. And we're also going to have Kay Carl Smith.
She was the incumbent. Yeah.
Okay. And we'll have fun with her coming in. So we will be back here on Tuesday with a great show. And I guess we have to see who we fill in for the rest of the calendar. I've been so busy with these elections and the Tea Party. And my head is spinning because there was so much going on. So we're not going to stop the fight. We're just going to take a little bit of a deep breath this weekend and get our feet back on the ground and then hit the ground running next week because now we've got the midterm coming up in 2018. Yep.
We got to educate a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've got to mention, because we haven't been on since Election Day, I talked about the sales taxes that they were trying to put through and the school board. We took control of our school board. We took control back, so we won there. And we also defeated all 3 referendums. They went down in flames, not by a small margin. I mean, we put them down in flames. So I'm telling you, local elections mean just as much as state and federal elections. We able to change the direction of our county by getting out there and getting people involved and out to vote. I saw people out there with Republican and conservative candidate signs. I did not see one for any progressive liberal Democrat. And we trounced here in our county. But I'm going to end the show with Todd Allen Herndon, My Name is America, because this goes out to all the vets out there. I want to say thank you to all of them, especially you too, Curtis, my co-host. And I say good night and God bless and be safe and happy over the weekend. Until then. Oh, I forget it's a long lead-in, but that's to our veterans. Thank you all and be safe out there. Hey, Sarge, thanks for calling in. Sarge, you still listening in?
Yeah, I am. Hey, thanks for the show. It was great. Michael was really fantastic. I mean, I wasn't aware of this guy, but I made a note to watch him in the future and see where I can listen to him from now on. He was wonderful.
Yeah, he's had the United States Justice Foundation now for 4 decades. So he's been out there fighting on the front line since the 1970s. So check out his site.
He definitely sounds like my kind of guy, and you're doing great work. In fact, I would say you're probably doing the Lord's work.
The good Lord was watching us. I don't know if you saw the ceremony when Obama was laying the wreath. If you get to see the replay, when they do taps, as he hits the high note, the wind swept through and the flags all unfurled. And it was just like God was waving his hand out there saying, this is what it's about. I'm telling you, it's fantastic.
Man, beautiful.
All right,
beautiful. But, of course, it was always marred by his presence there.
We are forgiving.
There's just no getting around it. But, it'd be nice to see a guy who's really a patriot as president of the United States.
Well, now we
patriot.
will.
I do believe Trump is a real patriot. Whatever his flaws may be, I do believe he's got the best interest of the country at heart. He loves most of his people, and he wants what's best for them.
Yep. Well,
and, that's going to be a refreshing change.
Yep. Well, thank you for joining us, and you have a great weekend, okay?
You too. Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Bye.
90 seconds.
Become my finest hour, because my name is America. I stand proud and free. My name is America. Don't tread on me. I cannot be broken.
60 seconds.
I cannot be shamed. If you hurt me, I'll get stronger, and I'll rise up from the flames, and I'll always stand proud and free. I'm America, don't tread on me. America is my name. For those who need me, I'll always be here. For those who will harm me, I'll face without fear. But I'll always stay proud and
10 seconds.
I'm America, don't tread on me. I'm America, yes, America is